I never thought stepping off that plane in Cebu would change my entire life. But sometimes fate has other plans. But looking back now, I realize that moment I walked through those glass doors was the beginning of the end of everything I thought. I knew about love. My name is David, and I'm a 48-year-old Canadian engineer. I'd come to the Philippines in March 2012 for a renewable energy conference. After 20 years in the oil industry, I was ready for something different. I just didn't know how different my life was about to become. The heat hit me like a wall when I walked out of Mactan Airport. Even at night, the tropical air was thick and humid. My taxi driver, a friendly guy named Jun, chatted about the beautiful beaches and kind people of Cebu as we drove through the city lights. "First time here, sir?" he asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "Yeah," I said, watching the busy streets flash by. Street vendors, jeepneys honking, kids playing even at this late hour. It was so alive, so different from my quiet life. In Calgary, I checked into the Royal Palm Resort in Lahug. Nice place, clean rooms, professional staff. I was tired from the long flight, so I went straight to bed. But I couldn't sleep. The excitement of being somewhere new, I guess. The next morning, I had my first meeting with local solar panel suppliers. That's when everything started to go wrong. Or maybe it started to go exactly according to someone else's plan. I returned to my room around noon, sweating from the heat and frustrated from a difficult negotiation. When I opened my door, I found water everywhere. The bathroom pipe had burst, soaking the carpet and my clothes. "Sir, I'm so sorry." I turned to see a young woman in a housekeeping uniform rushing toward me. She had concerned eyes and moved quickly to help. "I fixed this right away," she said in clear English with a soft accent. "My name is Carmen. I take care of this floor." Carmen looked to be in her late 20s, with long black hair tied back neatly. She wasn't trying to be glamorous like some of the other hotel staff I'd noticed. She seemed genuine, focused on actually solving my problem. Within an hour, she had maintenance fixing the pipe and housekeeping cleaning up the mess. She even arranged for my wet clothes to be cleaned for free. "Thank you," I said as she finished checking that everything was dry. "You really saved my day," she smiled shyly. "It's my job, sir, but I'm glad I could help." There was something about her smile that made me pause. Not flirty or fake, just warm. "I'm David, by the way, from Canada." "Nice to meet you, Sir David. You're here for business?" "A conference about solar energy, pretty boring stuff." "Oh no, not boring." Her eyes lit up. "Clean energy is very important for the Philippines. We have so much sun here, but not enough solar power yet." I was surprised. Most hotel staff just made polite small talk, but Carmen actually seemed interested in what I did. Over the next few days, I kept running into her. She'd always greet me with that genuine smile, ask how my meetings went, even remember details from our previous conversations. "How did the presentation go today?" she asked on Thursday morning as I headed out. I was impressed she remembered. "Actually, really well. The local government seems interested in our proposal." "That's wonderful. Clean energy will help so many communities here." I found myself looking forward to these brief encounters. Carmen was different from anyone I'd met in a long time. She wasn't trying to impress me or get something from me. She just seemed real. On Friday evening, as my conference was winding down, I made a decision that would change everything. "Carmen," I said as she was finishing her shift, "would you like to have dinner? I mean, just as friends. You've been so kind this week." She looked surprised, maybe even a little worried. "Sir David, it's not really proper for hotel staff." "Just as a thank you," I said quickly. "Nothing inappropriate. There's a nice restaurant downstairs." She hesitated, then smiled. "Okay, but just for a little while." That dinner lasted 3 hours. Carmen told me about growing up in a small town called Bohol, about moving to Cebu to work and support her family. She was the oldest of 4 children. Her father had died in a fishing accident when she was 16, so she'd had to grow up fast. "I send money home every month," she explained. "My mother takes care of my youngest brother. He's only 12. "That's a lot of responsibility," I said. "Family is everything here in the Philippines. We take care of each other." I told her about my own life in Canada, my divorce 3 years earlier, my lonely apartment in Calgary, how work had become my whole world. "Don't you get lonely?" she asked. "Sometimes," I admitted. That's part of why I took this job traveling more, to see if there's something else out there. When the evening ended, Carmen gave me her phone number. My idea, she said, though I could have sworn she suggested it. Walking back to my room that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope, excitement. Like maybe life had more to offer than just work and an empty apartment. I was supposed to fly back to Canada on Sunday. Instead, I extended my stay for another week. That was my first mistake. Or maybe it was exactly what someone was counting on. I told myself I was staying in Cebu to explore more business opportunities. That was partially true. But mostly, I wanted to spend more time with Carmen. She seemed as excited as I was. We started meeting every day after her work shift. She'd change out of her uniform into simple, clean clothes, usually jeans and a colorful blouse. Nothing fancy, but she always looked beautiful to me. Carmen showed me the real Cebu, not just the tourist spots, but local markets where she knew vendors by name, small restaurants where the food was amazing and cost almost nothing, and quiet, spots overlooking the city where we could talk for hours. "This is my favorite place," she said one evening, as we sat on a bench at Temple of Leah, watching the sunset over the city. "When I have problems, I come here to think." "What kinds of problems?" I asked. Her face grew serious. "Money, mostly. It's always money." That's when I learned more about Carmen's situation. Her mother, Elena, had diabetes and needed expensive medication. Her 17-year-old sister, Rosa, was smart enough for college, but couldn't afford tuition. The house they rented had a leaking roof that the landlord refused to fix. "I work 2 jobs," Carmen said quietly. "The hotel during the day, and I clean offices at night. But it's still not enough." My heart went out to her. Here was someone working so hard, caring for her whole family, never complaining. It reminded me of my own mother, who'd raised 4 kids after my father left. "How much does your mother's medicine cost?" I asked. "About 5,000 pesos a month. That's maybe $125 in your money, but that's half my salary at the hotel." Without thinking, I pulled out my wallet. "Let me help." Carmen's eyes widened. "No, David, I can't take your money." "It's not a big deal," I said. "Seriously, I spend more than that on coffee in a month." She shook her head firmly. "No, I told you about my problems, but not to ask for money. That's not why I'm spending time with you." It took me 20 minutes to convince her to accept the money. Even then, she insisted it was a loan. "I'll pay you back," she promised. "Every peso." That night, lying in my hotel bed, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. I felt needed, important, like I was making a real difference in someone's life. Over the next week, our relationship deepened. Carmen was easy to talk to, genuinely interested in my stories about Canada and my work. She taught me basic Filipino words: kumusta for hello, salamat for thank you, mahal kita for... Well, she said she'd teach me that one later. But there were moments that should have made me pause, like when her phone would ring and she'd step away to answer, always, coming back looking stressed. Or how she always seemed to know exactly where I'd be in the hotel, even when I hadn't told her my plans. One evening, I saw her talking to a man outside the hotel. When I asked about it, she said it was her cousin Miguel, but she seemed nervous. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Yes, of course. Miguel he worries about me. Having dinner with a foreign man. Are you uncomfortable? We don't have to..." "No," she said quickly. "I want to spend time with you, David. Miguel is just protective." I accepted her explanation. Why wouldn't I? I was falling in love. By the end of my second week, Carmen's family crisis had escalated. Her mother needed to go to the hospital for blood sugar complications. The medical bills were overwhelming. "I don't know what to do," Carmen cried as we sat in a quiet cafe. "The hospital wants 50,000 pesos up front. That's more than I make in 6 months. Seeing her tears broke my heart. Without hesitation, I offered to help. This time, Carmen didn't refuse as strongly. "David, that's too much money." "It's not about money," I said. "It's about your mother's health. Family is everything, right? That's what you taught me." I transferred the money that same day. Carmen hugged me so tightly, whispering "Salamat" over and over in my ear. That night, she stayed in my hotel room for the first time. Nothing inappropriate happened. She slept on the couch, but having her there felt right, like we were already a family. "I think I'm falling in love with you," I whispered in the darkness. "Mahal kita," she whispered back. "That's what I was going to teach you. It means I love you." My heart soared. For the first time since my divorce, I felt complete. I extended my stay another 2 weeks, then another. My boss in Calgary was getting impatient, but I didn't care. I'd found something more important than work. Carmen introduced me to her family during my 4th week in Cebu. We took a ferry to Bohol to visit her hometown. The poverty was shocking. Dirt roads, houses made of scrap wood and metal, kids playing in muddy streets. But Elena, Carmen's mother, welcomed me like a son. She was a thin woman with kind eyes, clearly still recovering from her hospital stay. "Thank you for helping us," she said in broken English, holding my hands. "Carmen is good girl, you are good man." The house was tiny, 2 rooms for 6 people. The roof leaked in 3 places. Rosa, Carmen's sister, was beautiful and obviously intelligent, but she'd had to quit school to help with expenses. She wanted to study engineering, Carmen told me privately. "Like you, but college is too expensive." My heart ached for them. Here I was, making more in a month than they made in a year, and I was complaining about being lonely. That weekend, I decided to do something about it. "How much would it cost to fix the roof?" I asked Carmen on our ferry ride back to Cebu. "David, so you've already done so much." "How much?" "Maybe 30,000 pesos. And Rosa's tuition?" "David, please, I want to help. You've given me something priceless. You've made me feel alive again. Let me give something back." By the time we returned to Cebu, I'd committed to fixing the roof, paying Rosa's first year of college tuition, and helping with Elena's ongoing medical expenses. Carmen cried again, but this time they were tears of joy. "You're like an angel," she said. "God sent you to save my family." I felt like a hero. For the first time in years, my money was doing something meaningful. I wasn't just accumulating wealth. I was changing lives. But as I would learn much later, I wasn't the hero in this story. I was something much more dangerous. I was the mark. And Carmen was very, very good at her job. 2 months into my extended stay in the Philippines, I'd fallen completely under Carmen's spell. What had started as helping with medical bills had grown into something much bigger. Every few days brought a new crisis, each with its own price tag. The roof repair led to discovering termite damage. Rosa's tuition was just the beginning. She needed books, a laptop, boarding fees. Elena's diabetes medication worked, but now she needed physical therapy. "I feel so bad asking for help," Carmen would say, tears in her eyes. "But you're the only person who can save my family." Each time, I told myself this would be the last time. Each time I was wrong. My friends back in Calgary started asking questions. My business partner, Mike, called me one Tuesday evening. "Dave, what the hell are you doing down there? You've been gone 3 months. Our clients are asking where you are." "I'm exploring new opportunities," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. I'd been meeting with more solar energy companies, even if my heart wasn't really in it anymore. "Opportunities or opportunity?" Mike asked. "Because Jenny from accounting said you've been sending a lot of money transfers to the Philippines." I got defensive. "It's my money, Mike. I know, buddy. I'm just..." "Look, I've heard stories about Western guys getting taken advantage of over there. Just be careful." "Carmen's not like that," I snapped. "You don't know her." But Mike's words stuck with me. That night, I found myself studying Carmen more carefully. Was she really as genuine as she seemed? The doubts lasted about 5 minutes. That's how long it took for Carmen to text me a photo of Rosa in her new college uniform, beaming with pride. "My sister says thank you," the message read. "She's going to be an engineer like you. Because of your kindness, our family has hope again. How could I doubt someone who was just trying to help her family?" The turning point came during my 4th month in Cebu. I was running out of reasons to stay, and Carmen knew it. "I have something to tell you," she said one evening as we walked along Lahug Beach. My heart stopped. Was she ending things? "I'm pregnant." Shaptiche, world tilted. Are you sure?" She nodded, pulling out a pregnancy test. "I was scared to tell you. I know you have to go back to Canada soon." I stared at the test, emotions flooding through me. Fear, excitement, panic, joy. Everything. At once. This changes everything, I said. I know. And I understand if you don't want, if this is too much. No, I said firmly. No, Carmen. If you're carrying my child, then we figure this out together. That night we talked until sunrise. Carmen was worried about raising a child in the Philippines without proper healthcare or education opportunities. I shared her concerns. What if you came to Canada, I suggested. We could get married, start fresh there. Carmen's eyes widened. You would do that? For me? I love you, I said, and I already love our baby. The proposal was spontaneous, romantic. Perfect. Carmen said yes through happy tears. But getting married in the Philippines, I learned, was complicated, especially for foreigners. There are many requirements, Carmen explained. Papers from your government, translations, fees, and my family, they'll want a proper ceremony. The proper ceremony turned out to be expensive, very expensive. Carmen's uncle Roberto appeared seemingly out of nowhere to help with wedding planning. He was a serious man in his 50s who spoke in dollar amounts. In Filipino culture, he explained over dinner, the groom must show he can provide for the bride. This is demonstrated through the dowry and wedding expenses. How much are we talking about? I asked. Roberto smiled. For a good family like Carmen's, and for a successful man like you, the dowry should be 800,000 pesos, about $20,000 in your currency. I nearly choked on my beer. $20,000. It shows respect, Carmen said quickly. It proves you're serious about taking care of me. My savings account was already hurting from all the family emergencies, but I couldn't back down now. Carmen was carrying my child. I paid the dowry. The wedding planning spiraled from there. Carmen wanted everything to be perfect. Flowers, catering, a traditional Filipino band, new clothes for her entire extended family. This is the most important day of my life, she said when I hesitated at another expense. Please don't let money ruin our happiness. The wedding day arrived in a blur of activity. The ceremony was beautiful, held at a historic church in Cebu City with about 200 guests, most of whom I'd never met. During the reception, I noticed something odd. Many of Carmen's relatives kept taking photos, but not of Carmen. They were taking pictures of me. When I mentioned it to Carmen, she laughed it off. They've never seen a Canadian before, she said. You're like a celebrity to them. But something felt wrong. During the speeches, Carmen's family kept referring to me as our rich Canadian brother and talking about how I would take care of Carmen and help the whole family. Nobody talked about love. That night, as we settled into our honeymoon suite, I tried to push away my doubts. Carmen was my wife now. We were going to have a baby. This was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. So why did I feel like I'd just signed a contract instead of marrying the woman I loved? My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Saw the wedding photos on Facebook. Hope you know what you're doing, buddy. I turned off my phone and held Carmen close. Of course I knew what I was doing. I was building a life with the woman I loved, wasn't I? Married life with Carmen started sweet, but quickly turned complicated. We moved into a nicer apartment in Cebu, nothing fancy, but better than the hotel. Carmen quit her job at the resort, which made sense since she was pregnant, and we were planning to move to Canada eventually. But without her income, the financial pressure on me intensified. My family is struggling again, Carmen said one morning about a week after our wedding. Rosa needs money for her second semester, and Mama's medicine is running low. I sighed, pulling out my phone to check my bank balance. The wedding had wiped out most of my savings, and I was starting to rely on credit cards. How much? I asked. Maybe 40,000 pesos? I know it's a lot. It was a lot. About $1,000. But what choice did I have? They were my family now too. This became our routine. Every few days, Carmen would approach me with another family emergency. Each time she'd apologize profusely and promise it was the last time. Each time I'd transfer the money. But I started noticing things. Like how Carmen always seemed to know exactly how much money I had in my accounts, even though I'd never told her. Or how she'd get mysterious phone calls that she'd always take in private. "Who was that?" I'd ask when she returned from these conversations. "Just Rosa," she'd say. Or Elena. Or Miguel. Always family. Always some new problem. One evening, I decided to surprise Carmen by visiting her family's house in Bohol unannounced. I took the ferry without telling her, planning to show up with groceries and maybe take everyone out for dinner. But when I arrived at the house, Elena seemed confused to see me. "David, what are you doing here?" she asked in English, better than I'd heard her speak before. "I wanted to surprise everyone. Is Carmen here?" Elena looked uncomfortable. "Carmen? No, she's in Cebu. With you." "Right, but I thought..." "Never mind, how are you feeling? How's the medicine working?" Elena looked confused again. "Medicine, yes, good, thank you." But she looked perfectly healthy to me. Not like someone who'd been in the hospital for diabetes complications just weeks earlier. Rosa came out of the house also looking surprised to see me. She was wearing expensive-looking clothes and carrying a brand new iPhone. "Rosa, how's college going?" I asked. She glanced at her mother nervously. "College? Oh, yes. Very good. Thank you for helping." Getting Carmen to Canada took 6 months and nearly $15,000 in visa fees, plane tickets, and legal expenses. By the time we landed in Calgary, I was borrowing money from my business partner just to pay rent. But I was hopeful. Surely in Canada, away from her family's constant emergencies, we could build a real life together. Carmen hated Calgary from day one. "It's so cold," she complained in July. "And boring. Where are all the people?" I enrolled her in English classes and helped her apply for jobs, but she seemed more interested in exploring the shopping malls than finding work. "I need time to adjust," she'd say when I asked about job applications. "This is all so different. From home." Within weeks, the financial requests started again. Now it was for winter clothes, a better phone to stay in touch with her family, English tutoring that was supposedly better than the free government classes. But the real problem started when Carmen began making friends. She connected with other Filipino immigrants through social media and started spending more and more time with them. At first I was happy she was making friends. Then I noticed she was coming home later and later, sometimes not until 2 or 3 a.m. "We were just talking," she'd say when I asked where she'd been. "These people understand what it's like to be far from home." Carmen also became secretive about money. She'd ask for cash for groceries or bus fare, but I'd find expensive makeup and clothes hidden in our closet. "They were on sale," she'd explain. "I'm trying to look professional for job interviews." But there were no job interviews. When I checked with the employment agency she claimed to be working with, they had no record of her. The breaking point came 4 months after arriving in Canada. I discovered Carmen had opened a credit card in my name without telling me. "It was for emergencies," she said when I confronted her. "The application said I could include household income." "Carmen, that's fraud. You forged my signature. I'm your wife. What's yours is mine, right? Not like this. You can't just... You're so selfish," she screamed. "I gave up everything to come to this frozen wasteland with you, and you won't even trust me with money." This wasn't the gentle, grateful woman I'd married. This was someone I didn't recognize. That night, Carmen didn't come home at all. When she finally returned the next evening, she was wearing new clothes and carrying shopping bags. "Where were you?" I asked. "With friends, people who actually care about me." "Carmen, we need to talk about money. I'm in serious debt. We need to budget. Maybe you need to find work. I'm pregnant, remember? I can't work in my condition." But we both knew she wasn't pregnant. We'd been in Canada for 4 months. If she'd been pregnant when we got married, she'd be showing by now. The lies were piling up so high I could barely see over them. I started investigating. I called the resort in Cebu where Carmen claimed to have worked. "Carmen Santos?" the manager said when I described her. "No, she never worked here. She used to hang around the hotel talking to foreign guests, but she wasn't staff." My blood went cold. Everything, absolutely everything, had been a lie from the very beginning. I hired a private investigator in the Philippines. What he found destroyed what was left of my faith in humanity. Carmen wasn't from a poor family in Bohol. She was from a middle-class family in Cebu City. Her mother, Elena, wasn't diabetic. She was perfectly healthy. and working as a school administrator. Rosa wasn't struggling to afford college. She'd graduated 2 years earlier and was working as a nurse. The family emergencies I'd been paying for, they were old problems that had been solved years ago, recycled to extract money from foreign. Men Carmen had done this before, at least 3 times that the investigator could confirm. She'd marry Western men, drain their bank accounts, then disappear. The investigator sent me photos of Carmen with other men, a German businessman, an American retiree, an Australian engineer. All of them looking happy and in love, just like I had. All of them probably broke now, just like me. When I confronted Carmen with the evidence, she didn't even try to deny it. "You were so easy," she said with a cold smile. "So desperate to be needed. You practically threw money at me." "I loved you," I whispered. "You loved an idea of me. A poor little Filipino girl who needed saving. You never bothered to find out who I really was. And the pregnancy?" Carmen laughed. "There was never any pregnancy, David, just another story to keep you hooked. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. 3 years of my life, gone. My savings, gone. My trust in people, shattered. I want you out," I said quietly. "Fine. But I'm not leaving empty-handed. I know my rights as your spouse." Carmen had researched Canadian marriage laws thoroughly. She was entitled to spousal support, especially since she'd given up her career to come to Canada. The divorce process was brutal. Carmen hired an expensive lawyer and painted herself as the victim, a young woman who'd been brought to Canada under false pretenses and then abandoned. She won a settlement of $50,000 plus monthly support payments. As I watched her walk away, from the courthouse, designer purse over her shoulder and a satisfied smirk on her face, I realized something. I wasn't her first victim, and I probably wouldn't be her last. Carmen had turned heartbreak into a business model, and I'd been the perfect customer. The months after Carmen left were the darkest of my life. I'd lost more than money. I'd lost my ability to trust, to hope, to believe in love. I was nearly bankrupt. My business partnership with Mike was strained because I'd been distracted and unreliable for over 2 years. My family relationships had suffered because I'd been defensive and distant whenever anyone questioned my marriage. Some nights, lying alone in my empty Calgary apartment, I wondered if I'd ever recover. But slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. The key first step was financial. I sold my car, moved to a smaller apartment, and took on extra consulting work. Every dollar I saved felt like reclaiming a piece of my dignity. The second step was emotional. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in financial and emotional abuse. It was hard to accept that I'd been a victim, but Dr. Martinez helped me understand the psychology of what had happened. "Predators like Carmen are experts at reading people," she explained. "They identify what you need, in your case, feeling needed and important, and they provide just enough of that to keep you hooked." "But I should have seen the signs," I said. "I'm not stupid. Intelligence has nothing to do with it. Lonely, successful men are actually ideal targets because they have resources and they want to help. Your generosity wasn't a weakness, David. Carmen just weaponized it." Understanding the manipulation helped, but forgiveness of myself and even of Carmen took much longer. I also started connecting with other men who'd been through similar experiences. There was a support group that met monthly, and I was shocked to learn how common these romance scams were. "The shame is the worst part," said Robert, a retired teacher who'd lost his pension to a woman from Ukraine. "You feel so stupid, so humiliated. But we're not stupid," added James, who'd been scammed by someone claiming to be from Nigeria. "We're human beings who wanted to love and be loved. There's nothing wrong with that." These conversations helped me realize I wasn't alone. Carmen and women like her were running organized operations, targeting vulnerable men with sophisticated psychological manipulation. 2 years after my divorce, I did something that surprised even me. I contacted the investigator I'd hired in the Philippines. "I want to know about her other victims," I said. "Maybe we can help each other." What I learned was disturbing. Carmen was part of a larger network of women who shared information about potential targets. They had databases of foreign men, complete with financial information and psychological profiles. But more importantly, I learned that Carmen was still active. She'd moved on to victim number 5, a lonely widower from New Zealand who was already sending her thousands of dollars for family emergencies. This time, I decided to act. Working with the investigator and one of Carmen's previous victims, the Australian engineer named Thomas, we put together a comprehensive dossier of evidence. Bank records, fake documents, photos of Carmen with multiple men testimony from her real family members who admitted they'd been paid to play along with her stories. We contacted the New Zealand police and were able to warn Carmen's current target before he lost everything. The man, a sweet 62-year-old, named Peter, who'd recently lost his wife to cancer, was devastated but grateful. "She seemed so genuine," he said over video call. "She listened to me talk about my grief, made me feel alive again." "That's what they do," I told him. "They're professionals." Peter helped us build a stronger case. With his cooperation, we were able to get Carmen arrested for fraud and immigration violations. She was sentenced to 3 years in a Philippine prison. I didn't feel satisfaction when I heard the news. Mostly I felt sad. Sad for all the lives she damaged, including her own. But I also felt something else. Purpose. Thomas and Peter and I started a website to document romance scams targeting Western men in Southeast Asia. We shared our stories, posted warnings about known scammers, and created resources for men who suspected they were being targeted. The response was overwhelming. We heard from hundreds of men who'd had similar experiences, and dozens more who'd been saved from losing their savings because they'd found our warnings in time. "You probably saved my life," wrote one man from Texas. "I was about to send my entire retirement fund to a woman in Manila. Your story made me realize I was being played. 3 years after my divorce, I'm in a much better place. Financially, I've recovered about half of what I lost. Emotionally, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I even started dating again, carefully, slowly, with my eyes wide open. I met Sarah, a divorced nurse from Calgary, through mutual friends. She's nothing like Carmen. She's independent, honest, and she actually pays for her own coffee when we go out. I like that you're cautious," Sarah told me on our 4th date. "It shows you've learned from your experiences without becoming bitter." We've been together for 8 months now. It's different this time, built on friendship first, with no rushing, no desperate need to rescue or be rescued. Just 2 adults who enjoy each other's company and are building something real together. Last month, I got a message that surprised me. It was from Carmen. She was being released from prison and wanted to make amends for what she'd done. "I know I hurt you," her letter read. "Prison gave me time to think about my choices. I want to pay back what I took." Part of me wanted to ignore it, but Dr. Martinez encouraged me to respond, if only for my own closure. I wrote back, "Carmen, I don't need your money. What I needed was honesty, and that's something you can't give retroactively. But I hope you find a way to make an honest living and stop hurting people." I never heard back from her. Sometimes people ask me if I regret going to the Philippines, if I wish I'd never met Carmen. The answer is complicated. I regret the financial loss, the wasted years, the pain I caused my family and friends who tried to warn me. I regret how long I ignored the red flags, how desperately I wanted to believe in something that was never real. But I don't regret everything. The experience taught me lessons I couldn't have learned any other way. It showed me that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive betrayal and rebuild. It connected me with other survivors who've become genuine friends. Most importantly, it taught me the difference between being needed and being loved. Carmen needed my money. Sarah loves me for who I am, flaws, scars, and all. The website Thomas, Peter, and I created is still active. We've helped prevent hundreds of men from falling into similar traps. We work with law enforcement agencies across multiple countries to track down and prosecute romance scammers. It doesn't undo what happened to us, but it gives our pain purpose. Looking back now, I can see how perfectly Carmen played her role. The shy hotel worker, the devoted daughter, the grateful wife. Every detail was calculated to appeal to my specific vulnerabilities. She studied me like a predator studies prey, learning exactly which emotional buttons to push and when to push them. But here's what Carmen didn't count on: resilience. She thought breaking me financially would break me completely. She was wrong. I'm 53 years old now. I have a good relationship with Sarah. I've reconciled with my family and friends, and my business is thriving again. My bank account has recovered, but more importantly, so has my spirit. Carmen took 3 years of my life and most of my savings, but she couldn't take my ability to learn, to grow, to love again. And in the end, that's what matters most. If you're watching this and something about my story sounds familiar, if you're sending money to someone you met online who always has family emergencies, if your friends and family are warning you about someone who seems too good to be true, if you're ignoring red flags because you want so badly to believe in love, please stop. Take a step back. Ask hard questions. Demand proof. Real love doesn't come with constant financial crises. Trust your instincts. They're usually right. And remember, you deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you can provide. The right person will never make you choose between love and financial security. They'll never manipulate you with tears and emergencies. They'll never make you feel like you have to buy their affection. Real love lifts you up. It doesn't drain you dry. I learned this lesson the hard way, but I learned it well. And now finally I'm free. It's been 5 years since Carmen walked out of that Calgary courtroom with her settlement money. 5 years since I thought my life was over. Today I'm sitting in my home office, not the cramped apartment I had to move to when I was broke, but a real house that Sarah and I bought together last year. The mortgage is in both our names, and we split all the bills 50-50. It's a partnership built on equality, not dependency. Sarah's making dinner downstairs. We're having her parents over tonight, and I can hear her laughing at something her mother said over the phone. It's a sound I never get tired of. Genuine joy, not performed for my benefit. The website is still running strong. This week alone, we prevented 2 men from sending money to suspected scammers. One was a 45-year-old teacher in Ohio who was about to wire $8,000 to a nurse from Cebu whose mother needed surgery. The other was a retired businessman in the UK who'd fallen for a hotel manager from Davao with sick children. The stories are always different, but the patterns are always the same. I got another message from Carmen last month. She's out of prison now and, according to her Instagram account, married to an American military contractor working in Qatar. She's back to posting photos of herself looking innocent and vulnerable, fishing for her next mark. Some people never change, but some do. Thomas, my fellow survivor from Australia, remarried last year to a woman he met at a community garden in Brisbane. They're expecting their first child together. He's 67 years old and happier than he's ever been. Peter from New Zealand has become something of an activist, traveling to speak at senior centers about romance scams. He's saved countless elderly widowers from losing their life savings to online predators. Mike, my business partner who tried to warn me about Carmen, is now my closest friend again. He was the best man at Sarah's and my wedding last month. Yes, Sarah and I got married. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. No dowry, no expensive demands, no drama. Just 2 people who love each other, making a simple promise to build a life together. The ceremony cost $3,000 total. Carmen's fake wedding had cost me nearly $30,000. The difference was everything. Sarah knew about Carmen from our second date. I told her the whole story. The manipulation, the financial abuse, the emotional wreckage. I was terrified she'd run. Instead, she said, "Thank you for trusting me with that. It explains why you're so careful. And honestly, after what I went through with my ex-husband, I appreciate a man who's learned to protect himself. That's real love. Someone who accepts your scars and helps you heal from them, instead of someone who creates new ones." I still get angry sometimes, usually late at night when I'm balancing our household budget, and I think about how much more secure we'd be if Carmen hadn't stolen those years from me. But then I look at the life I have now, honest, stable, built on mutual respect, and I realize something important. Carmen didn't just take from me. She also taught me. She taught me to recognize manipulation. She taught me to trust my instincts. She taught me the difference between someone who needs you and someone who chooses you. Most importantly, she taught me that surviving betrayal doesn't make you bitter. It makes you wise. I wouldn't wish what I went through on anyone, but I can't deny that it led me to become a better man, a more careful partner, and hopefully someone who can help others avoid the same trap. The boy who walked into that Cebu resort 5 years ago was lonely, vulnerable, and desperate to be needed. The man writing this today is content, secure, and genuinely loved. That transformation was worth every painful lesson. Carmen thought she was destroying me. Instead, she was teaching me how to build something real. And for that, in a strange way, I'm almost grateful. Almost.